Okay, so today's topic is runtime polymorphism. We alternatively call it as a dynamic method dispatch. So dynamic method dispatch. So dynamic method dispatch means, let's say you have a method to call, and which method to call and which method to get executed. If this gets decided at the runtime, then we call it as a dynamic binding. Let's say you have a method A. Let us discuss this with the help of this example, then you will be able to understand it more clearly. Say you have a class A. Inside class A, a method is there, call me, void call me. So when we call a method this call me, so this message gets printed on the screen inside A's call me method. This is it. This is a simple class A with only one method. We have another class B, which extends the class A. Class B is not a normal class, it is an inherited class from class A. And in the class B, we have overridden this call me method. We have again written this same call me method, void call me, and the message is inside B's call me method. If this call me function gets called, we will see inside B call me method this message on the screen. If this gets called, we will see this inside A call me method. We have again a simple class C, which extends again A. B extends A and C extends A. Okay, this is not a multi-level or any other type of inheritance. This is independent. I mean, B is inheriting A and C is also inheriting A. Okay, again the same void call me method, same void call me here and void call me here, and inside C's call me method, if this call me gets called, this message you will see on the screen. Okay, now we want to understand the mechanism of this dynamic method dispatch. So we have created a class, the main function, public static void main string args, the main function. Now let us create a object of each class. So this line creates an object of class A. A is equal to new A. So this small a is the object of class A. B is equal to new B. So this small b is the object of class B. C is equal to new C. This small c is the object of class C. Now we know how this object gets created. So normally when I write A, it means I am creating a reference of class A of type A. And when I do like this, A is equal to new A, it means I am creating and allocating a space for an object of type A, and this reference points to this area, this memory location, and then I can use this object of type A object of type A to call the methods or functions returned inside this object. This we have seen from the first lecture to till date. So here the point to remember, the point I want to discuss here is the reference is of type class A and it is pointing to an object or the memory location created for the object of type A. B, a reference of type B, a reference of type B pointing to an object created for object, pointing to an memory location created for class B, object of type B. C is a reference of class C of type C and it is pointing to an memory location created for an object of type C. Now a new concept is there that a superclass reference can point to an object of a subclass. Now how will that work? Say here you have a class A. So this is A ka reference. Let's say A, here we have written AR. So AR, if we write simply like this, it means we have created a reference R and it is of type A. Now two classes are derived from class A. One is class B and one is class C. So let's say there is an object of B, there is an object of C. Now you can access B ka object as well as C ka object with reference to your superclass. Simple thing in general language. Let's say I have bought a car. मैंने एक कार परचेस की. But if my father wants to drive my car, he is very well permitted and he can access my car. आप मना नहीं कर सकते. It is very simple. So this is A का reference. Who is A? A is the superclass. So A का reference. We have created reference of A. Now reference of A को हमने क्या assign किया? Small a. What is a small a? Object of A.
Object of A.
So this two line means A R is equal to new A. जो जैसा हम बनाते हैं for example, तो इस लाइन का कोई मतलब it's not something dynamic related to dynamic method dispatch. तो A का reference, उस रेफरेंस में हमने A का ऑब्जेक्ट असाइन कर दिया. देन ये क्या है? A का रेफरेंस. A का रेफरेंस कैन एक्सेस टू B का ऑब्जेक्ट. व्हाट इज B? B का ऑब्जेक्ट. तो A का रेफरेंस B के ऑब्जेक्ट को एक्सेस कर सकता है बिकॉज A इज द पेरेंट क्लास, B इज द चाइल्ड क्लास. दिस इज R. R is the reference of A. उसको हमने असाइन किया C का ऑब्जेक्ट बिकॉज C is the सब क्लास, derived क्लास, चाइल्ड क्लास. ये रेफरेंस है पेरेंट क्लास का. ओके. नाउ अब हमने जब R is equal to A लिखा एंड आफ्टर दैट वी गेव अ कॉल R dot call me. Then we written R is equal to B. And then we gave R is equal to call me, R dot call me. Then we have written R is equal to C. And then R dot call me. So when the parent reference is pointing to an object of A. So this call me will give a call to A ka version. When the reference of the A is pointing to class B object and you give a call to r.callMe, the same line will give a call to this version B, this call me. There is a reference when you assign an object of type C, and then if you give a call r.callMe, this will give a call to this callMe function. So the same line r.callMe, r.callMe, r.callMe. So 3 places the same line is there, but all the time it is giving you 3 different output. The output of first r.callMe is this, inside A call me. The output of this second is inside B call me. The output of this is inside C's call me. So the same line gives you different output under different situations. What is the situation? Situation is this, that the reference is pointing to an object of class A, reference is pointing to an object of class B, reference is pointing to an object of class C. So the type of object, so if you have an inheritance mechanism or a scenario and you have overridden methods, then a base class reference to the base class reference, whichever type of object you assign, okay, so to the base class reference, whichever classes object you assign, it will give a call to appropriate method. It will give a call to this appropriate method of a respective class. This is runtime polymorphism or a dynamic method dispatch. Let us understand this concept with the help of one more program. Okay, the same concept but with a different program. Okay, let's say you have a class figure. You have 2 variables, dimension 1 and dimension 2 of type double. Here you have a figure constructor written here, constructor is here, which accepts 2 arguments from a user and assigns the variable accordingly. Here we have an area function and system.out.println, area for figure is undefined, this message is there, and return 0. Why we have written this function area for the figure is undefined? Because we want a figure, say rectangle, say triangle, say circle, to find out the area. We simply say figure ka area batao, so we can't say, we cannot calculate the area of a figure without knowing exactly what it is. Say if it is rectangle, we can write the rectangle formula. If it is a triangle, we can write the triangle ka formula, right? So this is a class figure. You have 2 variables, a constructor function to initialize these 2 variables, a area function which simply prints a message and returns 0, because the return type of this is double, so you need to return something, so return 0. Now Now from this class, from the class figure, let us derive a rectangle class. Now from the class figure, let us derive a rectangle class. So class rectangle, it extends class figure. Okay. Now inside rectangle class, we have a rectangle constructor which accepts two arguments from a user, and calls a super AB. So super AB, this line will give a call to parent class constructor. Now which is parent class constructor for the rectangle? This one. So this super AB, this line will give a call to this constructor, and this constructor will in turn initialize the variable dimension 1 and dimension 2 for rectangle. We have written a area function. We have overridden double area. Now here it is general figure. We don't know what is the figure, so we don't apply the formula. We can't apply the formula. But here we know the area of a rectangle we want to print. So area of a rectangle is this, dimension 1 multiplied by dimension 2. So return dimension 1 multiplied by dimension 2. So whatever is the multiplication of these two values, you return the answer as a area of that rectangle. Now this is for the area rectangle. This is normal figure class. Now we have a triangle class. Now we have a say triangle class. It extends figure class. It extends figure. Again, this figure class extended by the triangle class. We have a triangle constructor. Just like we have a rectangle, we have written a triangle constructor. It also accepts two arguments from the user, A and B. And it gives a call to base class constructor, super A comma B. So this super A comma B will also give a call to this constructor, and it will initialize the value of dimension 1 and dimension 2 for triangle. Again, we have overridden the same method, double area, and here we are returning the area of a triangle. What is the area of a triangle? Dimension 1 multiplied by dimension 2 divided by 2. Matlab one half of the length into breadth. It is the formula for the area of a triangle. So this is how we have written three classes. This is base class. From base class we have derived one class. From base class we have derived this another class. We have this overridden method, double area, and double area over here. Now let us try to see how this runtime polymorphism work, just like we have seen earlier, like A class, B class and C class. So here we have created a class, a public static void main, a class and public static void main. Here, let's say in the first line, we create an object of class figure. Figure F is equal to new figure 10, 10. Since we are creating an object of type figure, we are creating an object of this class. This constructor gets called automatically. Dimension 1 and dimension 2 will get initialized. Let us create a rectangle class, object of a rectangle class. So rectangle R is equal to new rectangle 9, 5. So constructor, this rectangle gets called. After this call, this will give a call to super. Eventually this will get called and it will initialize dimension 1 and dimension 2 for a rectangle with the value 9 and 5. Let us create an object of triangle class. Triangle T is equal to new triangle 10, 8. So by this line you are giving a call to the constructor triangle. It will give a call to super AB. This will in turn call this constructor and it will initialize the dimension 1 and dimension 2 for a triangle with the value 10, 8. So we have created an object of all the three classes. Just like in the previous program, we have created an object of all the three classes here. So same thing we have done it here also. Now in the earlier program, first we have created a reference of the base class. And after creating reference of a base class, we have assigned different objects to that reference. Okay, so here we are creating a reference. We are creating a reference of a base class. So figure is our base class. So ref is a reference of a superclass, parent class, base class. Now we have three objects. So first object is F, second object is R, and third object is T. So let us assign these three objects to the figref. So first figref is equal to R and we give a call to area function. This is your first thing. Figref is equal to T and you give a call to area function. 2. Figref is equal to F and you give a call to area function. So same. Figref is equal to area, figref is equal to area, figref is equal to area. The same line, but it will give you three different output. So in the first case, when we assign reference of a base class, let's say rectangle, when we assign a reference of a rectangle, so we are actually giving a call to this rectangle ka area function. We will get the area of a rectangle and it will calculate. Second is figref.area. This function you have given a call with respect to an object of a triangle. So this will give a call to triangle ka area function and you will see an area of a triangle gets calculated. Figref is equal to F. This will give a call to this area function wherein you will see area for the figure is undefined, return 0. So you will see the area is 0. You don't know what is the shape of that object, so you cannot calculate the area. So this is how this runtime polymorphism or dynamic method dispatch works. To summarize, to work with a dynamic method dispatch or a runtime polymorphism, you should have an inheritance, you should have a overriding concept in your function, and you should have an overriding concept in your program. Your base class reference, when points to a derived class object, then the version of a function to get called, then the version of a function to be called is known at the runtime, is decided at the runtime, and appropriate answer you will see. Abstract classes. So before going into abstract class, I mean, why we should create an abstract class? What is the difference between this abstract class with a normal class? So normal class, when you have a normal class, you create an object of a normal class. You create an object of a normal class, and with respect to that object, you access the member variable, member function of a class. So abstract class is a class for which you cannot create an object. The object of an abstract class cannot be created. You cannot create an object of an abstract class. Abstract class का object नहीं बनता. So the first question should come in your mind, sir, if we cannot create an object of a class, then what is the use of such a class? Till date, whatever class we have created, we created an object of this class, and using that object we have given call to methods and we have accessed the member variables. But now you are saying that abstract class is a class for which objects cannot be created. So if objects cannot be created, won't that class be useless? How to use that class then, and why to create? So the answer to these queries are, so let's say when you want to implement, when you want to write a code for a functionality for say two different cars. One is Maruti car and say one is Honda car. And you are sure and you want to, let's say the feature is say what you can say, the price of a car. एक डमी एग्जांपल से समझने की कोशिश करते हैं. So, and I am your manager. I have two teams with me. One team is coding for Maruti and one team is coding for Honda car. I am the manager. So what I will do is, I will try to identify the features which are necessary for Maruti, which are necessary for Honda car. So what I will do is, I will create a abstract class. मैं एक abstract class बनाऊंगा, and inside that class, I will write features, I will write functions. I will simply name the function. Function name I will write. And I will not provide the implementation of that function. And I will ask the Maruti team, developer of Marutis, to use this abstract class as a reference and go further. I will ask the Honda car developers to use this class as a reference and then move further. So what I have done is, what I have achieved is, whatever the common features which are essential in both the classes, I have summarized it in the abstract class. I have given both the developers a reference to start, and I have put a check on them. Say, मैंने मेरे क्लास में 5 functions as a reference डाल दिए हैं, and I have asked Maruti developer to refer, and Maruti developer ने 5 में से सिर्फ 3 ही function override किए. मारुति कार के अंदर 3 ही function को लिखना पसंद किया, 2 छोड़ दिए. मैंने तो 5 का काम दिया था, तो वो कोड उनका चलेगा नहीं. Their code will give an compiler error. ये एक general example है. Let us try to understand this concept with the help of this very simple program. Now first, how to create an abstract class? With the help of abstract keyword. Now where to write this abstract keyword? In front of a function. Void call me is a function. Before that, if you write abstract keyword, this call me function will become a abstract function. Abstract functions don't have a body, say like here. Concrete methods are still allowed. Okay, concrete methods are this is abstract method. So see here, semicolon is here. So for call me, you have not written any specification, any implementation of that function. So void call me, semicolon, abstract. So abstract void call me tells that call me is a function. It is an abstract function, and if in a class we have one or more than one abstract functions, then that class is a abstract class. If in a class we have say one or more than one function, one or more abstract function, then that class is an abstract class, and that abstract class object we cannot create. Now how to use that abstract class? So to use that abstract class, you need to inherit it. So you create a class B, you inherit an abstract class. And in the inherited class, you can write all the functions you want, all the functions that you want, but it is mandatory for you, it is compulsion, it is mandatory for you to write definition of all these abstract methods. In this example, we have one abstract method call me. So you have to write void call me here. If you don't write this void call me, this B will automatically become an abstract class and this code won't work. You cannot create an object of class B also. So this is how this abstract mechanism works. For a class to become an abstract, you should have at least one abstract method. Abstract methods don't have say implementation, semicolon here, they don't have implementation. For creating an abstract method, you need to use this abstract keyword. That class becomes an abstract. You write here abstract class. In the abstract class, you can have other normal methods also. You can write normal methods like we have been writing from the first lecture. How to use this abstract class? You have to inherit it. After inheritance, you can write all the methods in the derived class, whatever methods you want as per your choice, as per your logic of the program. But it is compulsion for the programmer to override all the abstract methods which are written in the base class, override. And then when you create an object of class B, simply it will work and it will work.